listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifester Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour and let us help you experience a higher vibration and a new state of mind. For those of you who aren't familiar with me or my work, I awakened with wolves. When I first met a wolf, it talked to me the same way that I'm talking now. It's just I was the only person who could hear it. And anyway, they taught me to read the energy of the heart. I can intuitively hear plants, animals, people, and I became an intuitive healer and writer as a result. You can find me at onetrueself.com. So welcome, Joanna, and let me tell you about our guest. Joanna, assuming I'm saying it right, Kujawa.
Kujawa.
Okay. Say again.
Kujawa. Do not worry, nobody can pronounce my last name.
Okay. Well, you can see it on her book and you'll have the information. She is the author of, there we go, Alien Goddess. And Joanna will tell us how alien adventures, mythology, and AI come together and her take on these energies and help with understanding the presence in our lives. So let me tell you about Joanna and then we'll get started. She's a scholar, spiritual detective, and the author of Alien Goddesses, UFOs, AI, and the Goddesses of Ascension, and the other goddesses, Mary Magdalene and the Goddesses of Eros and Secret Knowledge. She received her BA and MA from the Pontifical Institute for Medieval Studies at the University of Toronto, Canada, and her PhD from Monash University, Melbourne, Australia. As an active academic for over 20 years, she uses her scholarly training to investigate topics that other academics pass over, which I would certainly say that after reading your book. No one else has brought those concepts together. She asks, what is the true nature of UFO experiences? Is there a connection between AI, UFO, and the esoteric goddess tradition? She's a regular guest on many popular shows and is featured on season 4 of the acclaimed Magical Egypt series, apart from her writings for academic publications on spiritual travel. Joanna has also had her short stories and essays published through various media and in many prestigious anthologies, including Best Australian Stories, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, She Rises, and Rebel Society. She's on the editorial board of International Journal for Goddess Studies. So there is a whole lot in your book. For 242 pages, there's like an encyclopedia in there, really.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to make it quite compact. Right?
You did.
So it's not like a huge read, but I also try to put lots of ideas there. But not only an ideas, I don't want people to think that it's a theoretical book. It is very much a personal book. And also I look into people's experiences of abduction, my own experiences, ancient mythologies, esoteric sources, and also, perhaps another a little bit different look into the UFOs. And it is quite interesting because UFOs, it is just an old name. Now they are known as UAPs. So from UFOs, they moved the definition to unidentified aerial phenomena, and now it is unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Oh, okay.
So they start to kind of cross over that, spaceships, maybe mechanical spaceships or technology moving more towards the direction of consciousness and interdimensionality, because anomalous is much more mysterious than how to build a spaceship with anti-gravity something, right?
Well, I do know the Native Americans here because I've written some articles about it in the past. They call them star visitors, and they said that they steer their craft with their minds and their spirits.
That's fantastic, because this is in line with what I believe in when other researchers, because I quote other researchers like Professor Diana Pasuka, Professor Jeff Kripal, and it is very much aligned with what you're saying, the star people or star visitors. And I think the indigenous wisdom is very deep. And I actually connected, although I don't talk about it enough, I must say. So thank you for reminding me to what I call goddess consciousness or unifying consciousness, this other form of consciousness that we are abandoning, and actually we have abandoned already a few thousand years ago, or the feminine consciousness, which is the intuition, for example, right? Like
Right.
in the parlance is intuition, but this immediate knowing without reasoning, without logical thinking, without calculations, without strategizing, this kind of immediate knowing that comes from the heart, or I prefer to say comes from the soul or from a higher source to which
Right.
we're always connected.
Yeah, but we feel it in the heart chakra.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So we are actually we feel it, we know it, but somehow the main narratives in our culture, in all cultures, current cultures, are completely disregarding it. They just start to speak about it a little bit
Yeah.
because we are completely overruled by technology, right, nowadays, by engineers. And of course, technology can be good and, engineering is important and so on. However, we completely bought into this particular form of knowing or intelligence, very, calculating, measuring, and so on, which is very much external, and we are forgetting a much deeper knowing that you just mentioned, for example.
Right.
Yeah,
Which comes from nature, not from AI.
that's right, which comes from nature, and that's why. If you allow me, I was actually, the genesis of the book, Alien Goddess, started with my shock when I learned, and I actually my soul was shattered. I wrote about it in my book when I learned about not as much as about AI, but about the ideologies behind AI. So people, the powerful people, I'm not even talking about the engineers, but the powerful people like the technological overlords, right, the billionaires, who actually push for this idea of artificial intelligence. Not only they push for the idea of artificial intelligence, but for artificial intelligence to replace humanity and all natural world. And
Hmm.
when I heard about it, I was horrified. I don't think I was ever as horrified in my life. And in fact, I had a sense which really disturbed me, because I had a sense that I encountered something that is potentially evil.
Right.
So
And you
would you
call
like me?
those people the overlords of technology.
Yeah, overlords of technology, because they are actually the most powerful people on the planet nowadays. They are the richest people. They have resources to pay for research. So, all research is now towards AI. And also, quite interestingly, I was speaking recently to a academic and a friend who is doing research or DMTs and hallucinogenic substances, and how people experience, have powerful spiritual experiences there. And it is very difficult to get a research, for example, money for this, but they are interested I mean, the technological overlords are interested in funding this research if you are willing to research how can artificial intelligence intercept the connection that we have with other realities through hallucinogenic substances. So although this is not my area of research, I was really surprised that they are interested in this, but
Hmm.
they want to hijack it. They
Right.
don't want us to have this access. So that is
Right.
disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going outside and picking herbs out of your garden and making a tea. It's very different from buying a bottle that has an extract from the herb.
That's right. That's right. And then, they perhaps cannot make money out of it, right? Because
Right.
you just grow it
Yeah.
in your garden. But I think that it's more because I was asked once, do you think it is about money for them? And I think for these people, because some of them are already so rich, I
Right.
think it is more about power and control, which
I
is
do too.
actually more scary. It is more scary because, for example, why would you come up with an idea like transhumanism? So what's transhumanism? It is basically the attempt and promise. They pretend that they promise us immortality, which is complete nonsense. Transfer consciousness to a robotic body or to a computer system, and they say, yay, you will be immortal, you will be free forever. And I was horrified. Not only because actually, there are two things here. First of all, I do not believe that they will ever be able to transfer all of the human consciousness into a robotic body. They will just transfer calculating kind of mind, right, which is the rational mind. But the feminine form of consciousness, the divine form of consciousness, the intuition, the heart knowledge, and so on cannot be transferred to a computer because it just exists in a completely different sphere.
Well,
So
it's like when scientists decided that they were going to make ocean water, and they can make it exactly chemically like the ocean, but nothing can live in it.
that's right. So I love this example. It's a fantastic example. Thank you, Julia, because they try to replicate something that they cannot replicate because
Right.
consciousness is so much bigger than they know of. But what alerted me to this when I listened to interviews with these people, they say most of them say they never had a spiritual experience. They don't have spiritual life, so they don't know what they're talking about, basically. It's a form
They're
of
not really
ignorance.
alive yet.
Yeah, and they are not really alive. So then that's why they want to de-alive us too, right? And one, I don't know if I should mention names because I don't want to cause any problems. One calls himself a Christian, but when he was asked a question, do you feel humanity is worth saving? He kind of couldn't answer this. He just stopped.
Probably
Okay.
was thinking only brilliant people like me.
Yeah, that's right. Like, yeah, so just some people maybe, who want to have robotic bodies. I don't know what was on his mind. So this is transhumanism, and it really starts with, for example, something like Neuralink, right? You allow, so you become slowly and slowly, you become a cyborg. You allow, okay, a chip in my mind. And actually in Sweden, they already make experiences, not only with Neuralink, but other things in chip in your mind. And lots of people think, oh, it's fantastic. I can
That's
look through the internet.
terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying. This is, oh, I can access internet from my head, and I think I don't want an internet in my head. And
Me either.
also, that's right. And also, how do you know that this is all they do, right? I mean, once
Right.
they have access to your thinking processes,
Oh, it
you,
probably changes your brain waves. It would
yes,
have to.
that's right. And also, like you have no sovereignty left,
Right.
right?
And we
It's
know we know that brain waves, like if you're in high beta, you're in everyday consciousness. If you're in high or low alpha, you're in a meditative state.
That's right. And then
So
there's also
no one could get
meta.
there if they're changing your brain waves around.
That's right. So all of this that connects us to the divine mind, I don't know, to the source, to our own greatness, is we are being disconnected from this. And that was very alarming for me. That
It
was
is
like,
alarming. Now, I want to bring up what you said about alien encounters because I've found it fascinating. And a lot of what you said is that it's like a really important dream that somehow or other it changes your perception of life. But at the same time, you're receiving information that you wouldn't get in regular consciousness.
that's right. So this is kind of changes our perception of UFOs or alien encounters, because I would argue that these encounters happen in what I call liminal spaces or imaginal spaces. So
Mhm.
what is imaginal? Imaginal is in between different realities, or perhaps in modern language, interdimensional, right? So we kind
Right.
of cross over to different realities. And our mind has to be open to this. And the reason why it happens, let's say most of the abductions or encounters happen when you fall asleep or when you just wake up, because I believe that our minds are most open. It's like a
Mhm.
child's mind, right? Children
Right.
see little beings all over the place, right? We just tell them, no, it's an imaginary being, right? So it not only from my research, but also from my own experience, this kind of encounters, this kind of beings show up in our consciousness. And in my experience and research, they always want to pass an information to us.
Right.
And what is complex it is that they do not use words. So for me, it once happened like telepathically, and the other one, I was downloaded.
Mm.
I was downloaded something that looked like images, which was a combination of hieroglyphics and some mathematical formula. And it was so overwhelming that all I could get from this was it is important,
Mhm.
but I didn't know any details. However, it doesn't mean that we really don't know on a different level of our consciousness, because after that experience, my life completely changed. I
Right.
started to do what I'm doing now, for example, which I would resist it with all my
Mm.
might because I wanted to take care of, my career and stuff, right?
Right.
So, so they do definitely have a message for us, and very often it is a message of warning.
Right. Or it is take a different road in life.
That's right. If you basically what they are saying, if you continue on the same path that you are right now, it is not going to end well for humanity, right?
Right.
Take a different turn, basically.
And it's not going to feel good.
And it's definitely not going to feel good. You're
Mhm.
right.
And so, in a sense, you're a part of your book is about that. This is really a huge opportunity that most people miss.
Yes, and I think we miss it because we are trained from our childhood that, to narrow our field of perception, right? So this is real, this is not real. And by the time we are probably 8 or 9, it's all gone. So we really have to work on opening our fields of perception. And it's quite interesting because if you study esoteric works, which are pushed on aside from all religions, they basically tell you, open your field of perception, cleanse
Hmm.
your field of perception, right? Like
Right.
Gospel of Thomas, which is a Gnostic gospel and so on. Cleanse your field of perception. And then, you are like a god or a goddess because, you have access to this amazing field of
Hmm.
information, of everything.
Right. And I say that sometimes to my students, ask questions.
Mm.
Like one
Ask
time,
questions.
my neighbor's got a big box, and I thought, I wonder what's in that. And I saw cat food, and I thought, oh, it's cat food. And then when I was walking back, I thought I could see the name on the side. It's like it is cat food. But I mean, that's how much the universe will answer you if you open up to it.
That's right. That's right. And you have to ask questions. And I think, at least from my experience, you have to be prepared that the answer comes from a different direction or in a different form, or it's not what you were expecting,
Right.
right?
It's going to be a completely different feeling from anything you thought was going to happen.
That's right. And you think, oh, maybe I'll become famous, or oh, but
Hmm.
it's not about that. It's the message is different. So we have to be open also to the message and the form in which the message
I've
arrives.
thought sometimes that those messages come in on the DNA because you change so much after you receive them.
Wow, yeah, that would be interesting research as well. So exactly whether it actually affects our DNA, I'm definitely certain that it affects our perception, right? Because
Definitely.
yeah, this is what I focus. But it would be very interesting. I wonder if somebody's doing this kind of study on the level of DNA actually, because I'm pretty sure
I think
that
they
it would.
probably are, or it wouldn't have occurred to me.
Okay.
You know,
Okay,
like
fine.
we've thought in high enough thought so that we're picking up on more information.
That's right. That's right. That's fascinating. Thank you for
Yeah.
this.
But I mean, because every time it really happens, you become another person. You're still you, but you're a
Yeah.
different person.
Yeah, I am a different person, and I must tell you, when I had a big awakening, that on the one hand, I was in total awe of my experience because suddenly, when I was in, it actually happened to me during a formal initiation to esoteric tradition. Suddenly, I saw that space and time are complete concepts. So it wasn't just the imagination, it was I actually experienced it. That suddenly the room in which I was sitting expanded like infinitely, then it collapsed on me. Then, when I went outside, I saw birds and parrots because I live in subtropical Australia, and trees, and I saw that it was just like particles moving around, and I was in complete awe. at the same time, my ego said, "Oh, what about my work? How am I going to make money?
Right.
How, yeah, fear of survival and so on." And yet, despite my resistance and my fear, I moved in a completely different direction.
Hmm.
My life changed radically. And I think anyone, including yourself, who went through spiritual awakening or spiritual experiences, had uh,
Yeah,
the same.
sometimes I look back and wonder, who was that? It's not the same.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. It's just I've come a long way, right? And I definitely took a different turn.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do think we ought to tell people who are listening because they're going to wonder, why are some people so paranoid and afraid? I think you said it was the government, like military government and
Mm.
church, because there's not
Yeah.
an easy explanation for them.
Yes, so I think that there are two things, and I hope I'm not offending anyone because I was brought up as a Catholic and I just moved away from this because I didn't get the answers I was seeking, right? It's
Right.
not that bad experience or anything. I just felt like, okay, I need more answers, sorry,
Hmm.
So I think that most traditional, actually maybe all traditional religions, just are based on rituals, and like this is the predominant narrative and that's it, don't ask questions. But
Right.
each of these religions has on a side esoteric tradition, whether it is Kabbalah, whether it is a esoteric Tantra, whether it is like even Christian mysticism and Gnosticism in Christianity. They actually tell you the truth is within. You're
Right.
connected to the divine light. So the answers are there, but outside of religious structure. And also, I think that for some reason, people focus on technology rather than on what this being want us to learn. So very
Right.
often, especially during abduction experiences, when people stop resisting, they get a message, focus on what I'm trying to tell you and not, how I arrived here.
Right. And they'll say, have faith, don't ask questions in
That's right.
church.
That's right. The church and also, whatever military complex, industrial complex, because it is quite interesting during the Cold War in the 1950s, there was one of the first sightings apart from Roswell, this man Arnold, who apparently became quite prominent in the UFO community then, said that, he had the sightings on the west coast of the United States and it was a big deal and, everybody started to look for the spaceships. And then only many years after, when he died, his daughter said he was not allowed to tell the truth. They told him not to speak up about it because he said they were actually not technological. They were like these bright orbs that tried to communicate with him. And he realized at certain stage that they started to were pulsating in the same rhythm as his own heart. They
Hmm.
adjusted the pulsation, so it was like almost like heart-to-heart communication, which is like really beautiful.
It really is
But
beautiful.
and they said, but he was told, no, 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 this is not on. You're not talking about it. You just have to say you saw spaceships, on the sky, and we have to build up a military.
Don't say anything about divinity.
That's right. But don't say about divinity or the possible message, or in fact, they try to connect with you on a soul level or heart level.
Right. Now, you say something about angels and UFOs in your book and how they fit together. You say the spiritual practice of priestesses was hijacked by interdimensional beings.
Yes, this is actually very fascinating. So I'm just wondering, how can you repeat the first part of the question? Because I jumped immediately
Okay,
with my mind.
let's do the first part. How do angels and UFOs fit together?
Oh, that's very interesting because there are people who made the research that basically compares UFO encounters or interdimensional encounters with angelic encounters. And very often, for example, in the Middle Ages, like 1,000 years ago, people encountered angels or they believed they encountered angels. And the description of an angel actually fits what people now describe as aliens. And the most important part of this, it is that angels usually say, do not be afraid, the first thing when they meet. And very often the UFO entities also, they transfer this message to our minds, do not be afraid. So they
Right.
are the same things. And there are researchers who said that sometimes, this UFO or alien encounter happens And then, one person sees an alien and the other one sees an angel.
Right.
So it's basically how we perceive it. Something definitely happened, except that people interpret it differently. And also, scientifically speaking, angels and photons apparently exhibit a very similar behavior. So, for example, they can be in two places all at the same time. They can move with the
They can
speed of
heal
light.
people.
Yes, that's right. So
They
there are
they
all
give messages.
and they give me messages, yes. And
Yeah.
they also open field of perception for us, because
Hmm.
so there are many, many similarities. So the more we look into encounters of angels from, Middle Ages on, the more it looks like alien encounters to us, or perhaps I would say we just always communicated with interdimensional beings. But before,
Right.
people were very focused on religion, so they thought they are angels. Now we are focused on technology, so we think they are like extraterrestrials. But
Right.
in fact, these beings always communicate with us. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, the indigenous communities always communicated with
Yeah.
them.
They said they've always been there, that they come for all their ceremonies.
Yeah, so they're just
Yeah.
like brothers and sisters kind of, right?
Yeah.
Situation.
So I mean, if a ritual or a ceremony is done correctly, they say that they can feel it and see it, so they come down to join it.
That's right. And, because of my Catholic background, I was kind of thinking, oh, it's all rituals. But actually, rituals are important because they prepare you. They prepare your consciousness to open up to something that is magnificent and new, and something that normally you may not be open to because we are preoccupied, with your mobile, or,
And you have a
with your
point of
box.
focus and an intent with a group of people, which
That's right.
amplifies it.
That's right. And there's the energy, there's a circle of people, so we
Hmm.
create the energy that intensified this field in which
Right.
it can
Because
appear.
when I was working on that, I was given a number and I was told to call this person. And I said, I was given your number. I wanted to talk about UFOs. And he's like, they're not UFOs. They're star visitors. He said, you insult them by calling them that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I love it, because that's why I also was so happy when UFOs changed to anomalous phenomena, unidentified anomalous phenomena, not
Right.
aerial, not flying, anomalous phenomena, which means something out of the ordinary, right?
Right.
Because w- we are so focused on the ordinary. That's the only reason, right? That we cannot see them in ordinary.
Well, that's the other problem with AI. It's manipulation of the ordinary.
That's right. And I think that is actually cutting us off from this higher consciousness that we are
Hmm.
speaking about, right?
Right.
Interdimensional consciousness. And before we even go on a break, I want to say because I'm trained in this, in theology, in religions, they say that you cannot give up your soul. You have to, you cannot, your soul cannot be taken away from you. You have to give it up freely.
Right.
So I think that this now we are being seduced by technology, by transhumanism, and we are asked to give up our humanity, and with our humanity to give up our souls because they want our souls, because our souls is our hot stuff.
Yeah.
Like
And
this,
it's where we have power and love.
we
And
have power and love, and they want it, I think,
yeah.
but not for us. They want it for themselves.
Well, that's the one thing that they can't control is the power of love or light or higher vibrations. If they
That's
can
right.
convince people to give it up on their own, that's one thing. But if people come together with those vibrations, it's unstoppable.
It is unstoppable, and they are definitely interested in it. As my calling, as I said,
Hmm.
looking to hallucinogenics, they said, "Okay, how can we intercept it?" I mean, I thought, like, why would you intercept it? That's wonderful.
I
Let people
know.
come any way they want. Some people meditate, some people have amazing experiences. Otherwise, some people use ayahuasca. So in
It's
any
all
way,
good. It's
it's all
all
good.
good.
Exactly, it's all good.
Stay
And
within
sometimes,
yourself and stay creative. So we have to go to break now. I'm Julia Griffin, and I've been talking with Joanna. I can't say her last name. It's interesting. Author of Alien Goddess. She tells us we're talking about UFOs, alien goddesses, and AI. And she has many fascinating insights about our soul and mythology. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. I'm talking with author Joanna, who is the author of Alien Goddesses. It's very fascinating work. We've already talked about UFOs and AIs, and now we're going to talk about the goddesses and myths. She has many fascinating insights, so stay tuned for the next half hour. So you have 3 or 4 goddesses that you talk about a lot. I'm thinking people would probably be most familiar with Demeter, do you think?
Okay, so Demeter is a fascinating goddess because I studied for the purpose of writing of this book, Alien Goddess, the Eleusinian Mysteries. And these are amazing mysteries because they actually talk in my research, in my opinion, about the descent of human consciousness into darkness and the ascent. So it is a kind of a classic story of descent and ascent. And the reason why we actually know this story, it is because we have this hymn called the Homeric hymn to Demeter that is 2,000 years old, that, it's still around, right? So I kind of analyze this hymn. But even before we look into this hymn, I would like to talk about the Eleusinian Mysteries, which were started by Goddess Demeter.
Sure.
Because when I was
Go ahead.
yeah, okay. Because when I was looking into Demeter, I realized that, and I was interested in this form of goddess consciousness, intuitive kind of soul, heart-oriented consciousness, that this kind of consciousness was celebrated in more ancient civilization than ours. By ours, I mean that our civilization really started with Greeks and ancient Greeks and Greek mythology. So we have all of these Greek gods and goddesses. We have this philosophers like Plato and Aristotle that everybody celebrates and so on. But actually, these people, and I hope I'm not insulting here anyone, were invaders of a much more ancient civilization. And for example, the remains of this kind of civilization exists at Knossos, which is on Crete, which is an island in
Right.
Greece. And it was called the Minoan civilization, which goes it is as old as at least 7,000 BC.
Right.
So some people say that it's as ancient as Egyptian civilization, or maybe older, or at least parallel. And
Right.
this civilization was passed through matrilineal heritage, which means like it passed from woman to a woman, right? So
Right.
like now we're more on from man to man, so from women to women. And then they worship this other form of consciousness. So what happened at certain stage, especially around about 2000 BC, this other tribes, which are now what we know as ancient Greeks, invaded the civilization, and they started what now we know as a
They
ancient
just
Greece.
picked up the philosophy and religion.
Picked it up, but also destroyed.
Right. Both.
So
Well, that's
exactly.
the
So
same thing with the church, with
yeah, that's it.
Judaism and all the pagan religions in Europe.
That's right. They just built the
They just
churches on top.
they just built churches on top of temples.
That's right, because these sites were holy already, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens with Demeter in the hymn of Demeter? She actually, before even we go into this her story of her daughter Persephone, she has to leave Crete, the island in Greece, because of the invasions, and she goes into the mainland. And there in Ulysses, she starts a temple of Demeter when she teaches humanity and regular people how to transcend our consciousness, right,
Right.
through the mysteries that she teaches. But the story is actually, so now I'll go back to the story of Demeter. So Demeter, and I think it's just so humane, and and it really talks about our sense of longing and the fact that we know that we are higher beings, and we have to reconnect with this form of beingness and consciousness. So how does it start? So Goddess Demeter is walking the earth, and she realizes that something really significant is missing. She feels pain and nothing makes sense. And I think we all know this feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she realized that something very dear to her, her daughter Persephone, disappeared suddenly.
Right.
And in my estimation, Persephone um, uh, symbolizes this other form of consciousness, this other form of knowingness. And she asks everyone, and nobody wants to tell her. They said, no, everything is fine. Everything, don't worry. You have a good job.
Right, which she does, because she makes the entire world bloom with fertility and for
That's
crops
right.
to come into fruition.
That's,
Best
that's right.
job.
That's right. But she knows that this is not true, that something is missing. And eventually, the goddess of magic, Hecate, and Helios, who is a big titan on the sky, right? He's a god of the sun,
Mm.
tell her, oh, the god of underworld took your daughter away. So everybody tells her, do not worry, everything is okay. And she says, no, something really important is missing. And eventually, she is so upset that she creates a famine on the planet. The
And
gods are
nothing will
miserable.
grow. Right.
Nothing will grow. There are floods, environmental damage and everything because this thing was lost. A little bit maybe like nowadays, right?
Mhm.
And eventually she says, I am not going to stop it until you give me back my daughter, which is other form of consciousness, right? And eventually the gods decided, like we cannot go on like that. So they went to Hades, which kidnapped Persephone, her daughter, and says, you have to give her daughter because, back to her because she's creating havoc.
She's killing
And
everything.
yeah, everything is being destroyed, right?
Yeah.
So Hades supposedly agrees, but before Persephone can leave the underworld, he feeds her a fruit. Pomegranate, this is how you pronounce it?
Pomegranate.
Pomegranate,
She
thank
eats
you.
6 pomegranate seeds, I
That's
think.
right, pomegranate seeds, which means that she cannot actually leave the underworld forever.
Right.
So he tricked her. So the mythology of the goddess, whichever mythology you look into, that she was tricked into something, right?
Right.
Unknowingly. So anyway, Persephone goes back to Demeter, but because she ate the seed of the fruit, depending on a story that we read,
Right.
she has to go back into the underworld for 3 or 6 months,
Right.
right? So
And
so
that's
and
winter because it's
yeah,
winter when she's with
yeah.
him. Yeah.
So this is the season of winter, right? So for me, in my estimation, this is the story exactly of that, because I was looking at the mental state of the goddess Demeter, which she just knew something is not right, but everybody's telling her, no, everything is right. Like,
Mhm.
for example, just to modernize it, you have a good job, you have enough money for a coffee.
Mhm.
What are you
You have so
complaining
much to be
about?
happy about. Yeah.
Yes. And you think like, no, but I know something is wrong, something that is
Hmm.
really essential to me as a human being, as a divine being also is missing, that I know it's there, but I'm told it's not.
Right.
And then she goes on the search, right, and recovers this form of consciousness, and then what I call unity consciousness happens again, right, because she
Right.
manages to recover what was lost. And when we look at other mythologies, the same story repeats itself, whether it is goddess Inanna, where we look at Pistis Sophia, which is a Christian esoteric work, very powerful and very much relatable to artificial intelligence. The same story happens. The goddess has to descend because she knows something was lost, although
Mhm.
nobody believes her.
Right.
And she brings it back for the rest of us,
Hmm.
right? So
And at
this is
that
this.
moment when Persephone ascends, the entire earth breaks out in flowers.
That's right, because this is a beautiful
It's a
metaphor. Not
union.
It is a union, yes. And
Yeah.
suddenly we have a full consciousness, not only, strategizing, logical consciousness, but the heart consciousness, the soul consciousness. And for your listeners also, in Christianity, it's called intellection. So it is kind of like immediate knowing. In Hinduism, it's the buddhi, the higher
Right.
mind. When you
Like
have,
Jesus becoming the Christ or Buddha becoming the Gautama.
that's right,
Or
it's the
Gautama
Buddha.
becoming the Buddha. I said it backwards. Yeah.
That's right. Buddhahood, Christ consciousness. This is
Hmm.
exactly, we can call it any way we want, right? Depending on our beliefs, but this is it. But we have to bring it back to our awareness. Otherwise, I personally believe that there's no way out of what's going on right now. And we are definitely very aggressively and deceitfully being pushed towards artificial intelligence, which completely cuts us off from this form of consciousness that ancient myths are talking about.
Right. And that's where we have to go back, as to the part of us that can perceive that. And one of the really beautiful things you said at the end, you said that it's in nature that we're going to find that. It's not on the computer. It's in hearing nature speak. It opens up that part of us that can hear all those other things.
That's right, because I may just share, because my experience with initiation and choosing a spiritual path was very similar to you. So first of all, I thought because I'm academic and so on, right? I thought, oh, I'm going to, when I'm spiritual, I'm going to become brilliant. And no, I connected with nature. Suddenly, it went horizontal kind of, right? I suddenly could understand trees and birds and everything. I suddenly felt connected again. And I was very conscious of this because when I was writing Alien Goddess, at certain point I had a vision, which was more of a download really than a vision, when I'm sitting in a garden with a dog and but I'm, instead of paying attention to all of the beauty around me, the flying butterflies, the blossoming flowers, the eucalyptus trees, to the sound of birds, I'm obsessed with my mobile, right? And I'm just scrolling through the mobile. And I could see how progressively I'm getting involved more and more with technology. I got a Neuralink, and I become a cyborg. And eventually I am becoming this mechanical robotic body that they want us to become. And I'm completely disconnected with nature, from nature. I'm completely disconnected with knowing who I am, like the goddess when she descended,
Right.
to the, and completely forgot who she was. And then this being that was a part of me, like almost like from the future, from different reality, saw me sitting in the garden, still human, still natural. And I heard this voice, help me, which was like, it was just so powerful, but it was also horrible, right? Because
Right.
this is where we are being pushed to do. And nature actually, is very important. We cannot, artificial intelligence is not only about destroying humanity under the pretense of giving us immortality, it is about complete disconnection with nature, from nature. Because if you're a robot, why would you care about nature?
No, you wouldn't.
It's actually not in the field of your perception, right? Because it's not a computer program. So that's why, for people who are going to read Alien Goddess, don't worry, it actually has a good ending.
Right. It does.
So that's why I brought this Slavic shamanic entity, Baba Yaga, at the end of the book, because she's this powerful shamanic entity, interdimensional entity that was really portrayed as a villain, somebody that eats young men in her soup, and she's disgusting old woman, when in fact, in my interpretation, she is the ancient goddess that we rejected. She is this natural divine consciousness that we are so disconnected from that for us, she is alien.
Right.
She's ugly, she's old because she's natural, she's ancient. She is this divine ancient consciousness, but we are so disconnected from this that we see her as ugly. We don't understand her. That's why we fear her. When in
Right.
fact, she is like the goddess of apocalypse, which means apocalypse means revelation, unveiling, right?
Right.
So we do have to come back to her because, and we have to appease her also because she's pretty angry with us,
Yeah.
for being stupid,
Well,
basically.
it's what I said. If we can come back to the power of love in nature, we're unstoppable. So it's necessary to sidetrack us.
That's right. So that's why we cannot allow anyone to sidetrack us, to disconnect us even more. So what we don't become the creatures, that I nearly became, in my imagination or in my vision. It wasn't imagination. It was a warning, a vision of warning. And can I just say that I was listening to an interview, actually, I was reading an interview with one very brilliant engineer in robotics. And this woman actually said, which gave me like cold shivers, even my family thinks that I'm AI from future.
Wow.
And I thought like, wow. And she thinks it's a joke. And I thought like it gave me cold shivers because I thought she was actually passing a message. She's
Yeah,
actually revealing herself. So in my book, Baba Yaga represents this different humanity. So for example, in my vision, you and I would be Baba Yagas because we are without a neuroling in the
right.
future. You understand? And then people, these robotic creatures would look at us like, who are you? You know, like,
Well,
yeah.
she has a really good life because she gets to live in the woods with animals.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so she lives
Yeah,
in the woods and she's one of beautiful animals and she grows her own herbs and actually the cauldron in which in
right.
all uh, traditional stories people are scared that she's cooking young men there and so on eating people. This cauldron actually is a kind of a boundary. She's making sure that evil doesn't overtake the world.
That's what the cauldron is for.
Yeah, this is what cauldron is for.
Hmm.
And she's for ages, for millennia, she's making sure that we return to our sanity, that we
Right.
return to the unity consciousness, that we reconnect with nature, that we connect to the divine spirit, the divine spark within us that makes us into a human spark, basically, like divine spark within a human body.
Hmm.
But we are really at a crossroads nowadays, and I do not believe that we will ever be able to experience it if
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 you
you
go that
buy
way.
into, if you go that way. And we are being pushed that way
Hmm.
professionally. I'm telling you, even on my work, professionally, and it's just like you're being pushed in this way.
Oh, yeah. And there's a program for everything now.
That's right. So, and I'm afraid that the majority of people will do go for this because they don't know. It's a form of ignorance. But I learned about very interesting concept from science by Professor Gary Nolan. He experienced speciation. What happens? It means that the same species, like you and I, right? And then, we develop normally to this point. And then let's say you decide to stay natural and I decide to take a Neuralink, right? So we go in different ways. And if enough time passes, we develop into different species.
Right.
So I think that this is what most likely will happen. That
Hmm.
some people will do this, and there will be then this robotic species. And I think that actually at the end they may feel superior because they're always
Right.
young and
Because
so on.
universal energy is always going to be stronger no matter what stories we get.
That's right. And eventually, we will have to help them.
Hmm.
Like we will have to help them because they will realize something is lost. Like the goddess when she found herself in darkness, when she lost the unity consciousness.
Right. And another thing about the goddess stories that's fascinating, some of them they have to shut down their chakras and their powers to descend, and then they get them back as they ascend. That was pretty fascinating.
That's right. And I think like it's in each, it doesn't matter which mythology you look into, which
I know.
esoteric source you look in. So these are amazing similarities that once you descend, you strip of all of your powers. And I think that you strip all of your powers and also your all identifications, which may not be such a bad thing, right? But all
Right.
of your powers, you forget who you are. So that's why people think, oh, I'm just this body, I just have to make money. I just have this life and
Right.
I'll try to I don't care what happens after me and so on, because you don't remember this, but eventually you regain it as you evolve, right? You regain it and your consciousness evolves. And this is what I describe when I write about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which I believe gives us tools of ascension
Hmm.
through inner work, through inner
Right.
work.
So there's also a really good point. I think you said that when you expand your consciousness, the space around you actually expands.
Yes, I love it. And this is what I learned from esoteric traditions that, because some people think, and I understand, I feel the same way. How can I save the world? There's so much going on and it's just so depressing sometimes. And esoteric traditions teach us if you evolve, everything around you evolves.
Right.
You are, and this is the great power of humanity and the spirit within humanity, that we can, through inner work, evolve, and as we evolve, everything around us evolves. So we
Right.
are the agents of change, but the change comes not from external activism necessarily, but from internal activism.
Right.
If you work on yourself, then everything around you evolves. Everything around you is saved because
Because
you
that's the
saved.
nature of light.
It's the nature of light, yes.
And it's the part of the universe that it's really important for us to all remember now.
That's right.
It was really a fascinating book with all the different things that you put together in one book.
Thank you. And the movement was quite intuitive, you see, so this is good because it's combination of hardcore research and actual downloads. Because, for example, in part 3, when I go through different goddess mythologies and esoteric sources, there is no way I could do it in such a short time. You know,
No.
like to see. It was, I was just like, go here, look into this, now write it down. You know, I was just basically a vessel for something that was, you do this, do that. Making a connection between AI, the goddesses, and UFOs, the same. I finished the chapter on, actually the second part of the book on AI, which was the first thing I wrote, and I was told, now look into UFOs. And okay, so I just kind of obeyed, you know, I was led.
Right. I can tell you were led. Some of those goddess myths are so complicated if you have read them for yourself, and she really makes it simple and easy to understand. So that's amazing. So now we're coming to the end. So why don't you tell everyone what your website is so they can find you?
Okay, so my website is www.JOANNAKUJAWA.com, JOANNAKUJAWA.com. And don't nobody can pronounce my last name. That's okay. I'm used to it. And I would really love if you could connect with me also via my book, Alien Goddess, UFOs, AI, and the Goddesses of Ascension, which is available everywhere right now, especially on Amazon. There are some bookstores they have them. They have the book, but you know I wouldn't know which ones. So I think finding it online is probably the best option.
That's great. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for tuning in to the Power of Inspiration Awakening. You can sign up for my biweekly newsletter. Actually, it's with the moons on my website, One True Self, and you can receive tips about the energetic weather and spiritual development. So come and find me, and I'll be back in a couple weeks. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit OneTrueSelf.com. That's OneTrueSelf.com. That's ONE, TrueSelf.com.